Black Ops 3 on Xbox 360 is definitely an interesting experience, and while it's not the best COD game on the console, there is enjoyment to be found in it, especially if you hold nostalgia for this port like I do, and this is my review of the game approximately a decade after its 2015 release. So, for those who don't know, the PS3 and Xbox 360 versions of BO3 do not hold a campaign, only multiplayer, zombies, and Freerun, and I'm going to start my video by discussing the MP mode. I'm not 100% sure how to say this, but it's a little on the broken side. For those who don't remember, when you first start the game, you're given one unlock token and prompted to pick your first operator. This worked fine back in the day on my old Xbox, but now whenever I try to pick my first operator, the game just freezes, and I tried multiple times to get started on multiplayer, and every time the game just froze whenever I attempted to choose my first character. I looked into it, and apparently a lot of people who have recently tried to start BO3 on the 360 and PlayStation 3 run into this problem, but based off a somewhat recent Kobatine stream that I watched, the MP seems to work fine for those who are already set up on BO3, so I don't really know what to say here, other than be cautious and save your receipt if you're buying this version of BO3 in 2025 because you want to play online multiplayer. Now that being said, the offline local MP with bots, well, that works just fine, other than, you know, it's a bots match, and you literally have zero progression because you have everything unlocked right off the bat while offline, and you cannot earn XP. So you can pretty much just go ham with customizing loadouts. I personally tried to get my wife to play with me, but she wasn't interested in BO3. But hey, bot battles, they can be fun, and this game holds a good variety of game modes, like Team Deathmatch, Free-for-all, Kill Confirmed, etc., and you can choose any map you want and adjust the bot's difficulty and number to your liking. So that's good at least. Now, I'm unfamiliar with modern COD multiplayer. This is actually the most recent Call of Duty MP that I've touched, but BO3 was the first game to introduce operators, which all have special abilities that charge throughout the game, like an explosive bow, a flamethrower, a minigun, etc. And I think I like Reaper with the minigun the most of the bunch, although I never unlocked him online as a kid, and I mostly played as Sparrow with the bow because middle school me thought that she was hot. For some reason. I was a weird kid, okay? Don't judge me. Moving on from the local MP, this game also contains the aforementioned Freerun mode, the closest thing that Xbox 360 BO3 has to a campaign, and it's just 4 parkour courses for you to complete in the quickest time possible. Not much to it, I guess, and it's probably really enjoyable for fans of first-person parkour games, although with the exception of Severed Steel, this isn't a genre that I was ever too big into. Still, it's a nice little off-to-the-side mode, I guess, although this mode could have been improved by adding online leaderboards and some achievements attached to Freerun. And that pretty much wraps up the MP half of this game. Before we dive into discussing the undead, I would like to note that this game did have 2 DLCs available at one point, being the Giant Zombies map and the Awakening DLC, which came with Der Eisendrache, did I say that right, and some MP stuff. But I personally did not acquire these items before the 360 store closed, so I can't really comment on them, other than saying that many of the achievements require DLC, making this game impossible to 100% for anyone who did not purchase the downloadable content while it was still for sale. That out of the way, time to discuss zombies. Now, Zombies is my favorite mode in Call of Duty as a whole, be it Black Ops 2, World at War, shoot, even World War II. Zombies is my fave, but I could never get into BO3 Zombies. I mean, I tried, and I gave it many chances, but it's just not something that quite did it for me, you know? And who knows, maybe I would have liked the other maps more, but BO3 only had one map on disc, being Shadows of Evil, hailed by many as one of, if not the greatest map of all time. but I'm just not a huge fan of it. Maybe I would have liked the map a bit more if it had BO2 weapons and mechanics, but I'm a guy who doesn't like change. That's why I regularly play a 20-year-old console, and BO3 changed a lot of things from the previous games. For one, the zombies seem to get faster and more aggressive a lot quicker than in World at War, BO1, and BO2, which is where I reckon the 3-hit system came into play, allowing you to be hit 3 times before a down versus only 2 on the earlier games before getting Juggernog, which gives you a little health boost for anyone who doesn't know. Also added to the mix is the ability to slide instead of doing dolphin dives, although this one didn't have much impact on me personally, and the perk songs were redone, which was a bit of a bummer as I really liked the previous ones. And finally, of course, the biggest change BO3 zombies introduced were Gobblegums, power-ups similar in design to perks, but less permanent, if you will. Like, you hold a perk until you down, but a gum could be a 1 or 2 time thing, like in plain sight, which makes you invisible to the zombies for 10 seconds, or something like stock options, which is activated upon acquirement and it lasts for 3 minutes, which makes it so that shots fired from your gun pull from your ammo reserve and not your magazine, basically giving you 3 minutes of not having to reload. And unlike perks, which have stable prices, the more you buy Gobblegums in a game, the higher the price gets, with some gums being level locked, others DLC locked, or Mega Gobblegums, which are acquired in Dr. Monty's lab, and they have limited quantities, meaning once you use up your supply of that gum, you have to hope that you can unlock some more in Dr. Monty's lab, which is random, and you seem to just randomly earn divinium by just doing things. So in a nutshell, use your Mega Gobblegums wisely. So yeah, one could say that BO3 was quite different from World at War to Black Ops 2 Zombies, which didn't have many core mechanic changes apart from a couple things here and there. Getting a bit more into the on-disc map itself, Shadows of Evil, it's just not for me. I know that a lot of people loved the more complex maps of BO2 like Origins or Mob of the Dead, but I prefer the more simple survival maps like Town or Farm, and the simpler World at War and BO1 maps. But Shadows definitely leaned into the more complex side of things, having just so much going on. Buildables, the beast mode, having to turn on every single perk individually. This just wasn't for me. Mix that in with the fact that this map is just, it's huge, and I generally prefer smaller maps. So again, Shadows just missed the mark for me. So it's basically a massive complex map with a mechanical overhaul, a story that wasn't up my alley, and no guns from the previous games. Well, all this combined, it just wasn't quite for myself, and I think that this game could have benefited from having a small survival map like BO2 did, dividing transit into small sections for people who need a small place to learn the basics and all the new weaponry, or just something for people who want a simpler game. And to top it all off, BO3 introduced a level up progression system which allowed you to customize your weapons and unlock Gobblegums, which I mentioned earlier, so it was just too much new stuff at once for me. And to be fair, I think that BO3 had some good ideas, but it's just not my cup of tea. A positive that I can give the zombies is that, unlike MP, I was at least sort of able to access the online features, and I even found someone else playing the game on one occasion, although we had some really bad connection issues, and sometimes I would even get disconnected from the servers on single-player games. So yeah, Activision definitely isn't putting Last Gen BO3 high on their priority list. But, like multiplayers, Zombies does have a local offline mode, in which you cannot earn XP, but at least you have everything unlocked right off the bat, excluding Mega Gobblegums, so that is an option if you don't feel like grinding to unlock everything in Zombies. And I reckon that really sums up BO3 on Xbox 360 in 2025 gameplay-wise. Performance-wise, it could get laggy sometimes, and I've heard that the PS3 version is even worse. But it does run better than Shadow of Mordor on the 360, another game that released both on the 360 and Xbox One. Hey, maybe I should review that at some point. Anyways, the sound effects and voice actors are good as far as I can tell, but graphically, yeah, it's not the best looking COD on the console. I guess technically it looks better than, say, Call of Duty Classic, but it's possibly the worst looking COD on the console, but I do understand that it had to be scaled back in order to run on the last gen hardware. In conclusion, given this game's lack of a campaign, the unavailability of DLCs, and the instability of the online services, I honestly cannot suggest buying this game in 2025 unless you happen to be nostalgic for this port, something I'll get more into in a minute. But I think this port earns a 7.4 out of 10 from me, and it's probably my least favorite COD on the console. But I will say this about it. Back in the day at launch, when the MP lobbies were full and working properly, I had a lot of fun with this game. I really did. And I recently bought it for a bit of an odd reason, some might say. For anyone who's unaware, this version of the game requires an update to be downloaded in order to be played, even though it can be played offline once that download is acquired. But here's the thing, one day the Xbox 360 online services will completely shut down, which will render this game unplayable to those without the update, and I am huge into game preservation, so I bought this game for a mix of nostalgia and wanting to preserve this title, because again, one day Microsoft will pull the plug on the 360, hopefully not in the near future, but one day it will likely happen, and I would like to do everything in my power to preserve a piece of gaming history, even if it's not great. Plus, CIB copies of this game are pretty affordable. But yeah, unless you played this version of BO3 back in the day and you want to revisit it, or if you're a preservationalist like myself, I really wouldn't suggest picking this up. Although, I would highly suggest picking up Black Ops 2 on the 360, my second favorite game of all time, and it has an awesome campaign, a great zombies mode, and very active MP, so give that one a spin if you want to play a COD on Xbox 360. And I reckon that wraps up my review for today. A couple notes apart from my review is that, if you haven't assumed it yet, I never played the next-gen version of this game. Maybe someday I will though. I remember asking my mom for a PS4 with the Black Ops 3 combo for Christmas 2015, and she told me to forget it. And I only got BO3 back then because a friend gave it to me. And I will give some credit to Activision here. They at least sort of tried to apologize for this game lacking a campaign by giving away digital copies of BO1 with this game on last-gen ports. So that was a nice gesture, I reckon. Moving on, as far as our Bible verse of the day, I read 1 John chapter 3, verse 11, NIV. For this is the message we heard from the beginning. We should love one another. And that is everything from me for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching. Like always, none of my content is made by AI, and I do not consent to my voice and likeness being copied, modified, or replicated by AI in any way, form, or shape. Thanks again for watching. Take it easy. Jesus loves you. Always remember that. Peace. Which is random, and you seem to just randomly earn